Okay. Merle says Philadelphia has an opera company. Okay, that's very important for everybody to know that. Thank you, Merle. Okay.
Well, that was a message to you.
Oh, I see. I didn't know. Okay, very good.
But that's okay.
I can't do.
Anybody else wants to know.
I can't do this stuff. You know, I can't chew and do Zoom at the same time.
Right.
So what can I say? All right. So we looked at Mishnah 13 as it's numbered in my edition. The last of the statements of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. Does anybody have anything they want to add to that, or do we go on to the next teaching? Right. The last one was that it's really important for people to sort of be comfortable with you or pleased with you. God wants that, and if that's not the case, then God is unhappy also. Right. I mean, it's a provocative statement, because I can think certainly of any number of situations where that would be the opposite. We mentioned last time, the prophets didn't worry about whether people liked them or not. They just told them what they felt was the truth and what they needed to hear. So there are certainly exceptions. What Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa might answer to that is, yeah, but you're not Jeremiah. When you have God's voice, bellowing in your ear, telling you to go tell people off, then okay. But if you're not Jeremiah, then be a little more solicitous and a little more accepting of other people, and they will be more accepting of you. But it does bring up the whole question of actually, when do you go along with what's going on in your community and your society, and when not. And again, I think we can contextualize this in different kinds of ways. If people feel overall that you're a really miserable person to be around, that's not an indication of righteousness. Then there's some kind of baseline sense that we can, understand Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa saying that, each person needs somehow, right? It's in the Torah, actually, right? So, love your neighbor as yourself. Their interconnectedness is fundamental to what God's interest is in creating a holy society. All right.
Rabbi?
Well, who said that? Meryl.
It's Meryl, yeah. So I was thinking about this from the other point of view, where all one does, and I struggled with this most of my life, so I'm talking personally, where you're always trying to make other people pleased and happy with you and whatnot, so even at your own expense often. And I think it's only when you get to be a certain age that, you realize that, people might not like you, not because you did anything wrong, but they just might not like you. I always thought everybody had to like me because I'm a nice person, but some people just don't like me. And now I don't care. But all my life, I cared, and I was doing whatever I could to make everybody happy all the time. And sometimes, as a result, I was unhappy.
Right.
So there's a balance.
Good. Oh, very important point. Yes. By the way, Merle, you are a very nice person. I just want to affirm that, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
Okay, Jen.
All right, is my mic working? Yes, it is. Yay. I was wondering too, I had a for myself, I'm sure this situation comes up when somebody you're supposed to be polite and civil with is says something really racist or sexist or homophobic or anti-Semitic, or choose whatever thing that is. Obviously that's something you don't want to just go along with. But is this a challenge to retain civility while you're disagreeing? I was the only time I've ever faced anti-Semitism was with a coworker at dinner, who apparently the Jews conspired to keep her husband from getting any well-paid job or getting fired or something. I don't know. It was all the Jews' fault. And she did not realize at the time that I was Jewish. This was a really interesting. So I called her out on it, but I didn't feel like maybe I should have just gotten up and left. I had no idea what to say. It was like my first experience.
My inside information is that the husband didn't deserve it. We actually did the right thing.
Maybe, yeah. it was such a bizarre situation, and I still had to work with her afterwards, and I couldn't report it because it didn't happen at work. Like
Right.
if it happened at work, I probably would have done.
Yeah. So,
But like I don't know if this is like, call it out and say, no, this is wrong what you're saying, but not in such a way that you're completely burning bridges or whatever.
yeah, I think that brings up one point. I think that we can take from the way that he phrases his teaching. He's not talking about individual encounters. He says ruach habriot, people, society, your community, the whole general arena of your social interactions. And I think that he's putting faith into a kind of a basic decency of the rest of the people that are out there as being a good judge of your character, so that if they can't stand you, then probably God can't stand you, can't stand you. And if they're fine with you, then God will be fine with you. So he's sort of having faith in a general collective wisdom of the entire group. What you're bringing up is, a particularly touchy individual encounter, and he's not saying, and the neo-Nazi party should be pleased with you, so and God will be pleased with you, right?
Right.
So he's not saying that, So I
So
think,
he's
I'm
saying
not giving you an answer about how to handle that particular situation, but and strategically or tactically, it's always a question: when do you react strongly? When do you just walk away? When do you keep quiet? It's very hard to tell, what to do and when. And different situations are different. When I had that notorious encounter with the meeting, the community meeting, I didn't do an instant kind of calculation. Oh, well, there's pluses to do this and there's minuses to do this, but on the other hand, there's pluses to do that. I didn't do a whole thing. I didn't have time. But definitely, I think that it felt that this was a communal, public thing where something couldn't be let alone. If he had just said that to me at a dinner party, that would have been a different decision to be made about whether I should get up there and say the things as forcefully as I could, but calmly. Well, I wasn't calm, but not yelling and screaming and cursing. So it really is a context, driven situation. But his point is, and unfortunately, we're getting to the place now where we really have a question about it. His point is that he has faith in people, that he has faith in the overall society that you're in, or that he is in. We're struggling with that now. Are we splitting up into two societies, and each society doesn't have any faith in the other people? His situation was that he really believed that he could count on people's basic decency and basic sense of judgment. Somebody else wanted to say something. Yeah, Josie.
Had this happen a couple of times. I do say something. I was at the pool one day at one of those Y classes, and I heard this woman say, when we moved to Montclair, we wouldn't sell to Jews or Italians. And I yelled, I'm so glad you changed your mind, because I really like it here. And this very proper woman was horrified, because she never would have said that if she thought somebody Jewish or Italian was hearing her. So that's kind of like that subtle anti-everybody feeling. And the
Wow.
other was in Florida once at a convention I had to go to with my ex. And this woman said, I'm so glad we didn't meet in Miami with all those people. And I said, not me, give me the fountain blue anytime. So I think you can say something.
Well, you have a nice, from those two stories, you have a nice way of words of how to respond. So, yesher koach. Yesher koach. What can I tell you?
Mm-hmm.
Oy. Yeah. Ooh. All right. Should we go on to the next Mishnah? Let's go. So this is a new teacher, Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinas, which is a variation on Hyrcanus. We have Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, and this is Hyrcanus and Harkinas. All of these are Greek names. And his name is Rabbi Dosa. which I don't know. It's Aramaic. Not quite sure what it conveys. He's got a teaching. So who's going to read for us? Go ahead, Josie. You got the first approach.
Yeah, this is.
Wait.
Oh.
Let's get the general idea first.
This is weird.
Geraldine, you ready?
Yep. Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinas taught morning sleep, midday wine, children's prattle, loafing in the meeting places of the vulgar. All these will ruin a person's life.
Okay. So let's just try to resolve to stop that. And okay. And anybody before we get to the alternative Rabbi Shapiro translation, any other variations on this? Sarita, yeah.
Okay, let's see. It says morning sleep, midday wine, and children's talk, and attending the houses of assembly of the ignorant drive a man from the world.
Okay, that's a little more of a literal translation. Okay, of the first two basically are the same.
Yeah.
But the last one is a little bit more of a literal translation. So let's review it one more time. Geraldine, the last phrase, after the children, what does it say after the prattle of the children or the talk of the children, then what?
Loafing in the meeting places of the vulgar.
Okay, and Sarita's translation is?
Attending the houses of assembly of the ignorant.
Okay, so in the Hebrew, it's yeshivat, which means to dwell, to be in attendance somewhere. Loafing is an interesting translation. And the vulgar that's a kind of it's become in English a term of sort of like a little of an insult. It originally just meant the people, right? But in the Hebrew, it's Amei Haaretz, which means the people of the land. And we're going to get into what that term can convey different kinds of things. The middle term is an interesting term in Hebrew. It's Batei Knesiot, which is plural of a Beit Knesset. Right, so our shul is a Beit Knesset, a house of assembly. So we'll get back to that term also. Okay, so these are two similar translations. Geraldine, yeah.
What do they mean by children's prattle?
We'll get to that too, but let's get the trend, the two different translations first.
Okay.
Josie, you're on. You've got the text we want to hear. No, you're on mute.
Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinas teaches, sleeping late, drinking early, screeching children, and the babble of fools will drive you out of the world. Okay. So the first two are pretty much understood by everybody to be the same thing, right? Sleeping in the morning, that's what it says in the Hebrew, Sheina shel Shacharit. Shacharit is the morning, and that's the name of our morning prayers, is Shacharit, the morning prayer. And sleeping through the morning is no good, right? Let's take each one of these. I don't think he means that if you do all of them, it's no good, but if you only do one of them, it's okay. So oversleeping is no good. You're wasting your life away, right? Get up early in the morning and get something done, get moving. And we have blessings that celebrate getting up in the morning, right? The whole Birkot HaShachar is all about the idea that, wow, what a miracle it is. Besides the fact that we thank God for giving us back our life, our soul, then we start going, wow, I heard the rooster crow. I can stretch my arms. I can put my feet on the ground. I've got everything around me. So there's a tremendous amount of joy actually and wonder
in being able to wake up in the morning. And certainly in ancient times, that's all you had was the daytime. That at night, it's not like everybody had electricity and all that kind of stuff. You basically knocked yourself out like crazy in the daylight hours and then collapsed at night. So or maybe you had a nice little drink after you came home at night. And that brings us to the second one. Don't start doing that in the middle of the day, right? Don't start drinking these kinds of beverages in the middle of the day. Wait for the appropriate time, after you've got stuff to finish doing. So there's a certain kind of, in our culture, we would call it the Puritan ethic, right? Work hard, treat your responsibilities with seriousness, make every minute count constructively, and you have to earn your relaxation by working hard first. So those are the two first ideas. Then you've got the kids, and we have a number of translations here. So in Geraldin's translation was the prattle of children, right? In Sarita's translation, it was
Children's talk.
Talk, right? Which is a much more neutral term, right? And that's actually more of the true to the Hebrew word. The Hebrew word sicha means conversation, and then we had Rabbi Shapiro, who goes, he must have had 4 or 5 kids, in the room screeching while he was writing this translation. And it affected him, I think, a little bit. So he says screeching, right? Yeah, that's not the Hebrew. But he's trying to make a context for when this could make sense. What do you mean? And if kids are talking, that's bad? So most people understand this to mean that you're spending time, instead of hanging out with people that you can benefit from their conversation, you hang out with the kids and you just talk nonsense with the kids, right? So obviously anybody that's had the joy of hanging out with little kids and talking with them knows that there's certainly a sweetness to it, there's certainly goodness, and even sometimes wisdom. Jen is sort of giving a little, but there's a limit, right? There's a limit to what it how much time you should be spending doing that. And that's part of what each of these things. Sleeping, you need sleep. If you don't sleep, you're never going to be able to do anything. Drinking wine is okay. We make a blessing on the wine. We don't make a blessing that's special for beer or for Coca-Cola. Wine has its own special blessing. We have a blessing for beer, Coca-Cola, water, Sprite, Tab, vodka. All of them are under one blessing, which is the generic blessing. Thank you, God. Everything that you made is great. Thank you. But for wine, we have a special blessing. So wine is good. But it depends when, and it's obviously getting drunk is not good. So it depends when, and it depends how much. So what he's talking about is overdoing this, right? Not doing stuff in the right measure, in the right context. So, and we're not talking about an elementary school teacher, right? We're talking about somebody who supposedly has something else to be doing, and instead they're hanging out with the kids. And that could raise an eyebrow. Why is this person, instead of cleaning up the backyard, they're hanging out with the children, that are 20 years younger than this person. So there's a certain kind of warning. No, that's not where you want to be. Right? Try to find an age-appropriate community to hang out. If other people have any other comments about these elements, everybody, of course, is always welcome. Yes, Geraldine.
Looking at it from the other point of view, though, it's important for children to hang out with us because that's how they learned how to speak
Right. So
and
that's
communicate.
right. That's an important thing. And not only how to communicate in more than one way, not just they learn, words and vocabulary and so on. They also, wherever they're going to hang out, that's going to affect how they think about things, how they see the world, how they have conversations. Are they going to always yell and scream and insult each other because that's what they see the adults do? Or are they going to learn how to be, civil and respectful? Which, again, they're going to learn from the adult models, right?
Right.
Here, that's the problem. The problem is this person is presumably an adult. That's who's being addressed by Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinus, and he's going the opposite direction. Instead of being the role model or the teacher or the guide, he's hanging out with the kids, and that's a little bit what I would say. The word I was thinking of is slumming, right? It's one thing to be really interested in the people that you're with. It's another thing to have a preconceived idea about a group of people and, therefore connect with those people because they satisfy your concept of what, they're exotic in some way. There was a term that was put out in academia about the fascination that, Western white males, had for exotic peoples, lands, communities, Orientalism, right? There was a kind of a patronizing sense that, look at those interesting savages, look at those, quaint, people. Unfortunately, I'm aware of, people, for instance, that used to, let's go to Harlem and let's check out how those interesting, people there, their music, is and how they behave. It's a kind of an anthropological patronization of people. So
this is Meryl. I had an experience like that when I was about 19 or 20. We always used to, even before we were married, we'd celebrate Thanksgiving with my husband's family from Rumson, a WASP bastion of New Jersey. And his grandmother used to be very, very wealthy with servants and maids, suits and uniforms and all that. So she was old, and anyway, so the former butler and housekeeper who were married to each other always would come by to pay their respects to their old mistress or master or whatever. So they said, and what are you doing today, Heatley? And he said, we're going to Lakewood to watch the Jews.
Look at that.
And I was dumbstruck. I mean, I didn't say anything. I just.
Right. Coming back to our earlier conversation,
Yeah.
So how do you take that? It's not like it sounds like it doesn't sound like they're hateful. They just got this kind of like concept that we're a different
I don't think it was hateful, but I think it was derogatory.
Yeah, it was a different species, a lower species.
Yeah.
All right, Sarita, then Jen.
So perhaps taking this more literally, I assume that all of this, including what Rabbi Dosa has said here, is talking to other men as opposed to talking to women, and women who, in our society, women who were taking care of young children and were isolated so that, they were only having opportunities to interact with young children, their experiences, it's great interacting with the kids. I love my kids, but it's stultifying. I never get a chance to think anymore, and I'm sort of losing my mind and losing my intellectual ability. And so I'm sort of taking it in that way that can happen to you. And maybe I'm approaching it from a woman's perspective in that sense.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it's more out there now. Once upon a time, that was what was expected of the women. So, women didn't even get a chance to actually express that kind of dissatisfaction about being stultified because that was supposed to be their full fulfillment, So,
Right.
so we're finally waking up that even the women, are adults,
Right.
So, women and children first, because they're all part of one category, So, yeah, absolutely. All right. Soon as Jen is ready.
I'm really sorry. I have to help my parents. So
That's okay.
skip me and I will be
That's a
back.
huge mitzvah. Okay, go for it. Good. Anybody else want to say something? Okay, so what I want to do so that since I have it prepared and is I want to read to you what the Rambam says about this last piece about hanging out with the crowd, with the vulgar people, right? So the Am Haaretz in the rabbinic literature, maybe I won't be able to read. Am Haaretz is a term that comes from the Torah itself. It literally means the people of the land. And in itself, it's a neutral term, which depending on the context can simply mean everybody. Or sometimes it can mean actually the leadership of the country, the people who are the people of the land, the bosses of the land. And sometimes it can mean those other people as opposed to us, right? And then in rabbinic times, it more and more became a term referring to those who are not learned. And then the question was, at any given moment, how are relations going between this rising class of intellectual, spiritual leaders who emphasized studying and dedicating oneself to the Torah, and the people who had to go out there and work the fields, Am Haaretz, the people of the land, who didn't have the time that some other people made for the sake of studying, the Torah and so on and so forth. And some people would respect the rabbis, and some people hated and resented the rabbis. Just like we have, a division in society today, where you have a lot of people who politically are very resentful of those East Coast elites, of the university people, the Democrats, the Jews, because those are people who think they're smarter than us, and they overthink things, and what we know, and don't tell us any different. So depending on the place, the time, situations, there were times when these relationships could be very respectful and complementary, and other places and times and people where it was very antagonistic and bad. So what we have here, it seems to be, a using of the label in a negative way. Don't hang out with that crowd. So we're gonna have to come back to this maybe a little bit next time. I would share that Rambam that I wanted to share. Just in closing, Rabbi Akiva started out as an Am Haaretz, and of course then became the greatest sage of his time and of maybe all time. And he testifies, when I was unlearned, I wanted to beat up every sage. I hated them, right? He said, show me a sage and I'll just go over there and I'll knock his teeth out. So that's Rabbi Akiva, testifying that he once upon a time was, in that class of people that had a real antipathy for those smarty pants people. And of course, then he turned his life around. All right, we'll continue with this hopefully next time, right? Next time is Memorial Day weekend, right? But we're still going to meet, whoever can make it. Good. All right, Zag isn't everybody.
Bye-bye.
Gotcha.